And welcome to the Fall Form and Style Clinic. My name is Tobias Ball, and I am one of the managing form and style editors. We are a team of 16 editors who are dedicated to working with students who are writing their capstone. And we'll talk a little more about that here in a little bit. I'm going to be sharing my screen, so there'll be a few slides, and I will start doing that now. So I'll get this up there. But today, I think we're going to talk a little bit about writing the capstone. And we'll learn, we'll be doing this, the whole day actually is dedicated to writing the capstone. And we'll be hearing from other form and style editors. And they will also be sharing some tools and resources that will help you complete the capstone. I want to say a big thanks to my colleague Denise Long, who has been the project champion from the start for this clinic. It's a lot of work, and it has come together, I think, seamlessly because of Denise's efforts. And in fact, Denise will be spending part of the day today monitoring the chat box. So if you do have questions, they will initially go to her. Thank you very much, Denise. Because I'm sharing my screen looking at these PowerPoint slides, I won't be able to see that chat box, but at the end of the session, I'll go back and have a look. Do know, though, that all of the sessions today are being both recorded and captioned in real time. So after today, there has to be kind of an upload process, and then we will have those available either on our website or on the Office of Research and Doctoral Support website. That's kind of the umbrella department where we work as editors. Well, before we start, I always think about like myself. If I'm attending a session, be it like an academic conference or even if I'm taking a class, I want to know about the person who's doing the talking because I want to be able to believe that they know what they're talking about. So I just want to share a little bit about myself so that you know where I'm coming from and you can feel comfortable kind of getting to know me shortly, or just at least for a little bit, right? Like I said, my name is Tobias, and this is my 16th year at Walden University. I started in July of 2005. But before Walden, going way back, I studied at the University of Minnesota, where I continue to live here in the Twin Cities. I studied classical philology and religions and antiquity. So it was really just ancient languages and who used them and what they talked about. And then I have a master's degree from Oxford University in England in medieval history. And the most important thing, though, that kind of got me into originally then the editing team was my master's in library science degree. And when I was a library science student, my focus really was academic research and helping students find resources that would allow them to conduct this original research at a doctoral level. And that's what attracted my then boss to offer me a job as an editor, because I had originally started Walden University as an academic advisor. And as all of you know, here at Walden University, that's a key role, right? I mean, we would answer questions in advising about everything. I'm not sure we were experts in anything but finding information. And you would get students calling who were happy and angry and frustrated and excited, and just all over the place. But it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. But I'll tell you what, this job I have grown to love editing. And it probably gets on the nerves of a lot of my colleagues in the other editing team because like I get excited. I sit down and there'll be a manuscript that is 200 pages and it's dense. And the whole thing needs to be reformatted to meet publication standards, which you can learn about later with Carrie Little Brown. I mean, it needs a heap of work line by line. And I just think that is a lot of fun. So I want you to know that I, and I'm serious, the editors too, enjoy their jobs. We're happy to be here, and that this is going to be a fun day. Now, this is the one thing before we really dig in that I want you to listen closely to. The reason that I insisted that I be the person to give this session, transitioning from coursework to capstone writing, and just quickly at Walden we use the term capstone because there are dissertations and doctoral studies and project studies and all kinds of things that happen. But this is an important topic to me, the transition from coursework to capstone, And it's because this is where we can lose students. It's where students sometimes meander off the path toward completion. And that happens not because this task is impossible, because it's not. And it's not because it's even all that more difficult than anything that's happened in the coursework. It's just different. It's a different process from being in the coursework. And that's what I want you to learn about today. So I'm going to tell you why and how it's different. So today, we're going to understand the main differences in writing expectations. So pay attention to that in the writing expectations between the course level and work and the capstone stage. We're also going to try to understand how the doctoral capstone fits into the context of a doctoral degree. Because it's not just another course paper, it's something entirely different. And we're going to identify just a handful of writing and research strategies for transitioning from coursework to capstone. Throughout the day today, after this session, you will hear more about those writing strategies, including from, like I said, Carrie Little-Brown, who will talk about using the template, so all the formatting is correct, and she's got a couple of the topics she's covering. What to do, like right after you have that approved prospectus. Well, what now? What's the next stage? She's going to talk about that. Our colleague Jenny Martell will talk about the literature review and writing that, and that's kind of the essence of, I think, every manuscript is the lit review. So these are the key facets that are going to guide you to getting through that capstone. All right, so I want you to ask yourselves, we're not going to do a poll or anything, but what stage of writing the capstone are you at right now? There's a few places you can be. You can still be in coursework and just thinking about your topic, not even sure what a topic's supposed to be. You might be writing your prospectus or having your prospectus, completed, or it's already done. Maybe you're in the middle of drafting a proposal. It doesn't matter where you are in the process. It's always good to hear about these writing tips, the way people have experienced things and what's going on, and kind of how to apply it. Now, anytime there's a pause and I'm talking, it's me taking a sip of coffee like this. Okay, so think about where you are. Now I want you to look ahead. What are your main concerns about moving from coursework to your dissertation or to your doctoral study or your project? What's really on your mind there? Because the way you think about things, we're going to give ourselves a little template for thinking, right? That there are two stages of writing coursework and capstone. There's that doctoral coursework, right? So this is when you first start here and you're taking 1 or 2 courses a term, and there are weekly assigned readings. There are weekly posts you have to write, your own ideas, and interact with other people. And there might be a weekly written assignment. Now, at this stage, you're exposed to new theories and ideas. As you're being exposed, you're beginning to develop an interest, and really you're being taught at this point how to be an expert within your field. You're not becoming, you're being taught, right? So the learning is cooperative in terms of you're being assigned something. You also will hone your own research or application interests, right? The more you might come into the program with an idea of what you want to study, or of course, the area at least. But the more you read in courses, particularly the literature, the more you're going to understand what's going on currently and where you want to interact with that. Now, you're giving prompts to respond to, right? Assignments and directions. So you as students, you work toward instructor goals and program set goals. So in other words, somebody else is setting the goals for you and you're meeting them, right? That's the important thing to think about. Somebody else is setting the goals and you're working to meet them. Now, when it comes to writing the capstone, right? Keep this in mind. You transition away from being a course student and you become a guided research student. All right, keep that term in mind, guided research student, because now literally, and it does happen overnight, right? I mean, it's less of a transition and more of an abrupt, you're just jumping out of the plane, but you're on your own now in terms of independence and setting your own goals. So that's one of the important things I want you to recognize, is that you go from these instructor and program set goals to you setting your own goals. So you design and conduct original research or application in a field. And here is where you begin to demonstrate your authority and your expertise. And this is one of my favorite terms. This comes from the APA, actually, particularly the 5th edition, where you foster growth in your field. That's really what you're doing as a doctoral degree holder. You're not just learning, you learned as a student, but as a capstone writer, now you're contributing. So instead of taking things in, you are pushing new knowledge out there into the world, into your field. And you as a student work toward your own self-designed goals. Okay, so keep that in mind. You were a student receiving, and now you are an author and a researcher that's contributing. So the focus, this is we're going to talk a little more briefly here about writing courses, right? We'll kind of focus on that for just a minute. We're gonna run through this stuff. It's about 9:12, so I'm going to talk for another 15, 20 minutes and build some time for some questions. But I really want you to think about these things, defining the differences. So as a coursework, your focus again is on those prescribed goals. In other words, prescribed means you open up your course and you see, okay, this week I have to read these 3 articles and I have to respond to this prompt and write a 12-page paper. Okay, or whatever the assignment is. It's the work is limited in scope and breadth, right? You're not asking to be read about 12 different subjects, but you're focused on one area for that week, and that's what you read about. And you also have a reasonably restricted audience, right? For those course posts, the audience is your academic colleagues, the other students. You're talking with each other, and you're using each other to learn. And then when you write that course paper, your audience is one person. It's the faculty. Now, there's also this set of feedback and evaluation, right? There's grades and final assignments. And there's also hopefully some suggestions for how to improve your next assignment. Now, the thing is, oftentimes that next assignment happens outside of class. And occasionally in coursework, you can have time for multiple assignments and papers, but there's also there's limited revisions, right? Minimal drafts. Even that final course paper, it's not like you're turning in 3 or 4 or 5 drafts. You might get one shot at a review, and then you can revise there and turn it in a second time. The transition from coursework to capstone, it's not dissimilar to going from being a high school student to a college student. I used to teach at a high school here in Minneapolis, right? And so when the seniors get to be seniors, everyone's dying to give them some kind of advice. And one of the things I would say is keep in mind that here in high school, you've been given you've got assignments due maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. So your grade is based on all these little minimal things, all kinds of opportunities. You can mess up one and then make it up later. When you get to college, you might have a midterm and a final and maybe one other assignment. So now you only have 3 chances to be graded, right? So everything counts. So for the coursework, you have multiple opportunities, and it's definitely limited in its scope. That's appropriate, though. So in that coursework, you're learning how to write. This is when you really get to practice some things, right? Learn how to use that scholarly tone. It's academic writing is a little different than other kinds of writing. So you're being very specific. Everything you say is supported by a citation, right? We try and follow certain paradigms for writing. You keep things efficient. You remove all of your personal information. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. You're just being able to cite other work. You also want to understand the writing expectations of American academic English and graduate level education, right? So you're using this academic tone. And Carrie will probably talk a lot about that in her session too, as she talks about going from the prospectus to the proposal and beyond. You also begin to formulate arguments, and you learn how to summarize the literature, right? So it's not just like a book report where you've got one, you're citing one source after the other, but you're summarizing and synthesizing those things together. And you're learning APA style. I promise you APA is not a burden. I think of APA kind of like a referee, right? Like I'm a huge boxing fan. There's a great fight this weekend, right? I won't get into it. That was a digression. But so you have this ref, right, who knows the rules. So in other words, so the ref understands these guys are going to weigh kind of the same. There's a maximum weight. They're going to know that they can't hit behind the head. And they just know these things to keep the fight as even as possible. And that's kind of what APA is, right? It keeps the writing as even as possible. If a person sits down to read your manuscript and they understand that it's an APA, that means they know what these headings are going to look like. They're going to know what the citations look like. They're going to know what the reference list looks like and have expectations for the format of the tables and figures. So this way, they don't have to think about those things and wade through them trying to interpret them. They can focus just on your writing. And that's one of the reasons we have APA, so people can focus, and there's a universal standard for how things are going to look. Now, that was coursework, right? We talked about things being prescriptive, focused, and now we're writing the capstone. Here, the focus is self-determined. That means it's up to you. You can abandon the idea that someone's going to tell you exactly what to write. It's up to you, but you are guided by your committee input, okay? This is now original work. You're going to be an original contributor for a broader scholarly audience. If we have time, I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by original work, even though you're citing everything. That can come later. You're also making a contribution, right? You're not writing something that is so different or wild that no one's ever going to have access to it, but we will be familiar with the peer-reviewed literature because you'll be citing tons of it and reading all the time. You read it as a student, and now you're reading it as a capstone writer. But what you're doing is you're placing your work in the context of what's already published, right? So you're adding to it. You're becoming a contributor, and that's where that fostering growth in the field comes from. Now, here's the big one. Are you ready? Even if you haven't been listening before, this is the one where a lot of students have some difficulty. So I'm gonna be really careful here. I'm watching the clock, so I don't go too long. We got plenty of time left, but this is where I really want you to pay attention. Whereas in a coursework, you submit a paper and it's done. It's finished. You literally don't have to think about it ever again if you don't want to. You have done the work, and that may have taken you hours, right? To pick a topic, to read the literature, to summarize it, to make an outline, to write the thing, maybe go through a draft or two. So you're going to submit it, your instructor will read it and grade it, and then it's done. The capstone is different. It's a process. So you write your whole proposal, chapters 1, 2, and 3, or in other cases, for a project study, sections 1 and part of 2, or so whatever it is, understand that all of your work, you submit it to your chair for review. They're going to give you feedback, and then they're going to send it back, and there'll be a list of revisions, things you have to rewrite and reconsider. And that might happen multiple times for each part of your manuscript. Now, this is not meant just to slow you down or to torture anybody, although it can feel like torture, okay? But it's also nothing personal. It's definitely a part of the process, because what you have are 3 people who themselves are all doctoral degree holders, right? So they have gone through this process. They have learned not only about the topic, their own areas of research or their expertise, but they've learned about the research and writing process. So they're familiar with it too, because that's part of this degree. It's not just knowing your topic, it's knowing the process and becoming a researcher. Okay, so when you receive feedback from your committee, it's not something that we should necessarily take personally, right? Or that's meant to be busy work. The objective is that your work become more precise and more clear, and that you have selected an appropriate topic, and that there's that alignment within your manuscript. That's a real pickle, the alignment, right? That you've identified an academic topic, a gap in the literature, or this professional gap that needs to be addressed, that the literature you cited demonstrates that. You're showing that this problem exists because of the published literature. And then you need to gather the right kind of data and have the correct method to collect and analyze those data. That's when alignment comes in, and that's part of the multiple rounds of feedback. Now, here's the other thing too, is that your committee, you've got a chair, and then you've got a second member who's likely a methodologist. And then you have this third person who's a university research reviewer, right? So they're approaching your topic with even fresher eyes because they will have read it less frequently than your chair and your second member. And they're also thinking about these university standards. So you've got 3 different people with 3 different degrees who are probably 3 experts in 3 different things with 3 different personalities, right? How in the world are you expected to please all those people Well, you're expected to because of the process. It probably won't happen all at once. I don't have children, right? But I've seen people with children, and if you ask somebody with 2 or 3 children, what do you want to eat? I think you get 3 different answers, and that's just dinner, and they're hungry already. But there's no agreement, right? Now, the fun thing about this is that there's any conflict. I use that term lightly, conflict in committee suggestions. That's because everybody is having a conversation. Imagine if you were at dinner together and you're talking about this topic. People wouldn't be arguing and throwing fists, right? No, they'd be discussing it. And through their experience and own knowledge and wisdom, they would have a variety of opinions. And that's what's happening during these multiple rounds of revision, is it's a conversation that's taking place. And it's, keep in mind that it's not a challenge to you, but it's the process that you go through to emerge as a content expert. Your committee and eventually all of your readers is relying on you to be that expert. So when they ask you a question, it's not a challenge, it's like probably a question and they don't know the answer to, and you're providing it. And they're helping you adhere to these disciplines and the conventions of high standards. I mean, this is a doctoral degree, right? This is the highest form of scholarship. I and the editing team, we take that very seriously. So do your committee, because there's some social responsibility and professional responsibility that comes with being a doctoral degree holder. I went off a bit there, sorry. But thinking about the drafting, like the writing and the revision process, yes, most certainly it's one document, but you will go through probably dozens of drafts. You write something up, you finish it, you submit it to your chair, they send back a bunch of suggestions and track changes, and you have to go back and rewrite. And then it goes to them, and maybe it comes back to you again, or they approve, and then it goes to a second member, and you start that whole process over again. But you will go through loads of revisions. And I ask you to be, positive. I encourage you through this process, because sure, it might feel challenging, but it's how you perfect a manuscript, right? And it's not something that it's meant to like discourage you or rough you up. We used to have this thing at residencies back when we were face to face for residencies, which we will be again, I'm sure. But it was called a prospectus panel. What we would do is we'd have students who were at the prospectus stage, maybe starting to write the proposal, and it'd be a room, and it would be like an editor who was kind of the moderator and there to think about formatting and writing and researching. And when I was there, I would as also in a librarian capacity, so I would look up research articles with the person who was talking, and there'd be like 3 faculty in the room and a bunch of students. And a student would stand up, and they would take about 5 minutes and share their topic of their research, and then then the faculty would start asking questions, and sometimes students, they would just ask like clarifying questions, and the same thing happened every time. The first couple questions that are asked, maybe a couple 3, the student answers with this defensive tone, because it's a little nerve-wracking to be up there, right? And then all of a sudden, there are these precise questions that they're being asked to account for, so it feels as if they're being challenged or negatively questioned, right? Well, then this cool thing happened, and it was, oh my gosh, it happened every time. The student would begin to understand, first of all, they know the answers to the questions that are being asked because they've done all of this preliminary research already. There was a path that brought them to this point, and they relied on that path to give them the knowledge to answer the questions. So first, and then they realized, secondly, that the questions are actually supportive and they're things they should be thinking about for tomorrow, for designing a survey, or for, how they're going to analyze something. And then by the end of this 15-minute session, that was 5 minutes of presentation, 3 to 5 minutes of being defensive, the last 5 minutes are just this amazing academic conversation. So that's the same process that can happen when you're receiving all these suggestions from your committee, right? That it's just a conversation. And if there's ever a time that you're discouraged by something you don't understand, you ask your committee, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. And they'll be delighted to answer. If they make some suggestions about APA or some weird writing thing, you ask an editor. We're happy to answer. There's a lot of resources available to you. So speaking of those resources, right, look at that. How is that for a transition? In the capstone, the writing is focused on advancing, applying, and self-editing among already developed areas of writing. Self-editing. It's going to be a lot of you, right? It really is. When it comes time to do the work, it's not like there'll be a precise list. There may be some vague instructions because not everybody is a great communicator when it comes to putting in a bubble comment on a piece of paper, right? But you'll be doing a lot of self-editing. The things that hopefully you have developed, or that we will actually in the Form and Style website have resources for, things like scholarly tone, academic American English or American academic English and graduate level writing, the integration and synthesizing of the literature, right? We have methods of how we put the literature together and how you can create, I always think of it as a conversation in the lit review. And of course, APA style, right? So if you ask yourself, and you know what, if you're not sure, this is a great question to ask yourself, and I'm going to try and answer it here. What is a capstone, right? I mean, because we just throw these terms out there: dissertation, literature review, reference list, blah, 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 peer-reviewed article, like we know what we're talking about, or it's a shared language. It's not always a shared language. The first time I heard literature review, when I heard literature, I thought, okay, we're talking about the fiction section in a bookstore. When we say literature, at least when I say literature, I mean peer-reviewed articles published in scholarly journals that are available exclusively through library databases. So it's pretty specific, and I'm going to say it again. Peer-reviewed articles published in scholarly journals, accessible exclusively in library databases. That's what I mean when I say the literature. But a couple of things to think about. In Walden, a dissertation or a doctoral study or a project study, because we have all kinds of ways that people can demonstrate their proficiency as a doctoral level scholar. It's a lengthy document. It includes multiple chapters or sections. Do keep in mind that when we say lengthy, there is no magic number as to how long this thing will be. I wish I could tell you precisely, but that would just slow you down. Instead, it's as long as it needs to be. Editors see documents that are, 80 pages to 400 pages. So there's nothing precise about it. But what I can say is you don't sit down to 150 blank pages. What you sit down to write is a section at a time. And before you know it, it's just grown. But regardless of the length or which one you're writing, it's an original work, right? This is something that didn't exist before, and it's your contribution. It's your chance. It's like the final exam, really. It's your chance to demonstrate your knowledge and expertise in a field. Now, your expertise and knowledge includes being familiar with the literature. When we talk about establishing yourself as an expert in the field, in the academic world, that's how you establish your authority or expertise on a topic, is being the one who is most familiar with the literature. That's the whole point of the lit review. Jenny Martell later will tell you all about that. But think about this. You're going to be the only person, probably the only person in the world, who has searched for, collected, read, and vetted, and then synthesized this set of academic articles to demonstrate an argument. That's an original contribution. It's also an opportunity for publication. I see lots of lit reviews that are published, but that's where you demonstrate your knowledge and expertise. You're also going to assert yourself as a professional in the field, right? You're showing through this original contribution that you are now a part of your area of expertise. You display scholarly thought and capability as a scholar. And let me tell you this too, if you want to be a doctoral degree holder, it doesn't end with your capstone and your graduation. Next, you have to start publishing, right? You have to start contributing new areas to your field. That's how you foster growth. And that's what you do as a doctoral degree holder. And that's where that contribution to research, professional practice comes in. Now, at Walden, there's one thing that's kind of unique, and that is that application of social change. Every single dissertation, doctoral study, or project study has to have some positive social change implications. And those will be right there in the abstract. And I bet Carrie brings that up in her couple of sessions that are coming up. If you stick around, you are really lucky. You're going to spend 2 hours with Carrie Little Brown for this. It'll be broken up, right? But in terms of intellect and wisdom and kindness, you're not going to do any better than Carrie. I tell you, I sound like a robot in some of my comments to students, and Carrie sounds like she is guiding you to the promised land. So stick around for her. She's going to be great. So why is a capstone important? Look at my clock here. We got about 9 more minutes of talking. Why is a capstone important? Because it's the culmination of knowledge in an area of study, right? It's the collection and the curation and the presentation of a new area. And it demonstrates yourself, your own expertise. You're going to be an expert in the field. So when it comes time to you being asked those questions, whether it's in like a prospectus panel like I discussed, or it's during your oral presentation or the oral defense of your final manuscript, remember, the reason people can ask you those questions and they're confident asking the hard ones is that you know the answers. You will know it through all the reading the literature, all the research you've done, and all the writing. You will demonstrate your capability as an independent thinker and as a researcher, and it is indeed exhaustive. You've got your lit review, your discussion of seminal and current research in the field. That's exhaustive. You will be applying these skills. They're interpretive, your analysis skills. You'll be able to explain things. You're synthesizing. Really, what's happening is this is your opportunity to teach somebody this whole topic, right? Honestly, dissertation would probably be like a 2-week course. I mean, your own topic that you could talk about over and over the different aspects of it. Quickly, just to get like a scattershot idea of the process. This is just in general, right? So going left to right and then top to bottom. You have the prospectus where you just get the broad strokes out there so you kind of know what you're talking about and a committee can know what you're talking about. You write the proposal. In Walden language, a proposal includes either the first 3 chapters of a dissertation, or in a project or doctoral study, it's the introductory material, the lit review, and the methods. That's basically what it is. Anything you're writing about an introduction where you introduce your topic and your research. And then you give a literature review where you demonstrate the need for the research and establish your authority on the topic. And then you discuss the methods, right? How are you going to gather the data that you need to gather to answer your research question or address your professional issue? Once you have that written and you've gone through a bunch of editions, right? You've gone back and forth, and to hone the writing and hone the methods and get that alignment. You have your first oral, and that's where you get together with your committee and you talk about it. They ask some questions, you present your material, and then then after that, you go to your institutional review board, your IRB application. I'm sure you've all learned about that because you will be working with live human subjects, and there are all kinds of ethical issues we have to address. So you work with IRB, so the university reviews what you're doing and they approve it, and now you're backed by the university and you have additional credibility. You go out there and you collect your data, whether it's survey data or secondary data. And then you go way to the left again there, and you write those last 2 chapters or sections up. You write about your data. Here's everything that I collected, and here's a little bit of a summary and analysis of it. And then at the end, you say, here's the answer, right? Here, there was a research problem. Here's the solution, and you fill that gap. Then the best part of your whole experience, you get to work with me and the form and style editors. Because after all of these things and after all of these drafts you've been through, it comes to the form and style team where each editor is assigned, a few manuscripts a week. And what they do is they spend, I would say, 6 to 10 hours on a manuscript, and they read almost the entire thing, right? And you will receive that pre-publication formatting. Sometimes I feel like for students, it's easy to gather and interpret data, but it's difficult to set a margin, right? Because that MS Word can be a mystery. But we have a bunch of experts who will revise the formatting of your manuscript so that it meets the publication requirements of both Walden and ProQuest. And that's all that crazy stuff like preliminary and primary pagination and margins, table of contents, and formats of tables. They're also going to read it we're going to read your narrative and make sure that it conforms to APA. And when it doesn't conform, they're going to revise. They're going to use track changes and bubble comments and revise things right in the manuscript so you can see how it's supposed to look, right? And it will be correct. There'll be explanations too. They're going to revise for word economy and cohesion and flow, clarity, precision. There are times when as an editor, right, I've at a paragraph that's 1 or 2 pages, and I've been able to revise it to be about a half a page, right? That seems like a lot of cutting, but all of a sudden your words are simmered down to the essence, and there's this great clarity. It's a lot of fun. Then you have your big oral defense, right? Here it's called the second oral, but I would say it's the oral defense, where you will discuss the whole process with your committee, and it's recorded, and it's a big deal, and it's this rite of passage, really, apart from also being an assessment. And then your final document is approved by the whole committee, and then the Chief Academic Officer's office approves it, and then you're published in ProQuest. It is great. It is a lengthy process, and there's a lot going on. But you know what? Anybody who has a doctoral degree, anybody who has a PhD, an EDD, right, a DBA, a DHA, they have all gone through this process themselves. And it's meant not only to produce rigorous and accurate and important scholarship, but it's meant to hone you as a student and a researcher. So it's a valuable process. Now, along the way, we've got a lot of resources for you. I think these are linked here. So when you access the slides, you can see them, but you come to the Form and Style website, and I think it can be a little prettier, but we're working on that. You will find templates for your manuscript that will help you with the formatting. There are writing kits. We love the kits. This is a curated set of resources that will help you at every stage of the process. There's some instruction there that tells you what you're doing and why to do it, and here's how to help. We've got a form and style checklist, right, and document expectations. Those are just the things that also we're looking for, right? The APA and the writing, the formatting, so you understand what your editor is looking for, okay? But those resources are available. Check them out. When you access this session, you'll be able to use these links here and find this information. You know what you can also do? You can also contact an editor anytime you want, right? editor@waldenu.edu, and we answer your questions. Happy to answer them. Now, as we wrap up, just a couple minutes left here, the capstone writing process, some tips for you. Make sure you are working with your chair to determine goals. Remember, you're the one who has to set the goals, not your chair. You set those deadlines and the writing schedule that works for you, because writing the capstone is self-directed. You set the goals and the deadlines and the work schedule. When I was a grad student, I was also a guided research student. And this was explained to me by my, we call them academic supervisors. And some people didn't get it. And I watched people literally fail their graduate degree because they waited for someone to set their goals. I don't know what they were doing all day when I was at the library and, busting my butt writing, but they were just hanging out. But, you have to set your own goals. You can work with your committee, but set your own goals. The responsibility is on you, the student. You've transitioned out of the coursework and you're becoming an independent scholar. So the responsibility is on you to set these goals. If you want help setting these goals, talk to your chair, talk to an academic advisor. You can even send me an email and we'll talk about some other writing goals. I'd be happy to do that. But we set some goals and we stick to them. There's no more assignments or due dates, right? It's up to you. And you look for your faculty for support and direction. You are your own manager. You manage your schedule, your goals, and your deadlines. Find out what works best. Sometimes people like long-term goals, deadlines that give you lots of time and space. I'm going to write this by November 1st. Others like short-term goals. Okay, I'm going to write, this week I'm going to write X number of pages or read X number of articles. Or maybe it's even, daily. Today I will write 2 paragraphs, right? And that often helps students. Some people work well with a dedicated or scheduled time to write, where you literally have okay, this is what I do every day at this time. It's on the calendar, just like I go to work or, eat dinner. This is what I write at this time. It's up to you what those goals are. Hold yourself accountable. Really, it's you are accountable, kind of like in life, truly only to you. Ensure that you meet your goals and deadlines. Stay motivated. Talk with students in your 9,000 classroom. Share what's going on. You've got to be able to empathize and sympathize and share with other people who are going through what you're going through. And it's really the people in that 9,000 classroom that are sharing your experience. Reach out to those people I mentioned before, your committee, your academic advising, to the editors. There are people in our Department of Research Support and Doctoral Support who are methodologists. They can answer questions. They can help you out. Take advantage of all those resources that we talked about, and you'll learn later from Carrie and from Jenny and from Dan. So ask questions. Get that schedule that works for you. You need help, ask for it. Be intentional when you ask, be specific. And most importantly, you're setting your own goals and it's exhausting and tiring, but stay positive, be respectful, right? It's everyone's in this to support you because you will finish. You can finish and you will finish. The form and style editors receive between, I don't know, 100 and I would say 130 and almost 200 manuscripts a month. Capstone manuscripts, okay, that we edit. That means every month, that many students are getting to the very end of the process. It does happen and it can happen for you. When you work with faculty, look at those track changes and bubble comments they put in there. It's a conversation. It's not a challenge. You're just going back and forth. It's meant to guide and hone your narrative. One thing I want to say, think about this, that we tend to interpret text that we read through the filter of our own insecurity. So I send someone a text message, and even though I might think it's precise, okay, or I send them a note in their dissertation or an email, I might think it's precise. They're going to read that and think, well, they're maybe, what are they saying negative about me when I'm asking, directing questions. So it's not easy. And we also refer it, me too. Try and let go of those insecurities and take the questions and the comments and the redirection at face value and focus on your manuscript. Organizing, okay, I'm going to fly through these because we're about out of time. We are past time, but use the requirements in your program's checklist, use your template. Look at in the library, they've got examples of completed dissertations. That definitely helps. Have a plan when you're writing. Be ready to change course. That's going to happen. You may have to change courses when you're writing, right? You have to change a direction and be ready for that. It's all right because you will finish. Save everything. I like to write everything down. I keep millions of notebooks. Save everything on multiple drives. Keep all of your drafts. Stay organized. Keep track of all of your notes. They'll be valuable later too, because you might come up with another area of research for postdoc work. Think about the whole structure. Organize everything, not just grammar and APA. Organize your whole argument. Also, I encourage you to try to read passages out loud. That'll help you when you're revising for flow, right? Keep that tone academic but conversational and precise. Take some breaks between drafts. You've written like, say, 3 or 4 pages, give yourself a day and then come back, right? You earn breaks too. And quickly summarize, communicate effectively with everyone who's here to help you. Your committee, your academic advisors, your editor. Communicate and ask questions. Interpret that feedback positively as how can I really use this? How can I revise and purposely improve my manuscript? Be prepared for multiple drafts. Lots of feedback. It's just part of the process. It's not an evaluation of you as a person. It's how we get to through improving the manuscript. Be flexible and adapt your work to that direction. You're in charge, so the responsibility is entirely yours. It's all on you. Chairs and mentors are there to help. I'm going to add editors and academic advisors and methodologists are there to help. We're happy to use our experience and the things we know to help you out. Don't compare your progress to somebody else, right? Somebody might be super slow and you think you're wicked fast, and you meet somebody else who's like, eons ahead. This is all yours. It's not anybody else's. And I encourage you, as you're being self-motivated and proactive and respectful, enjoy this process. As hard as it is, you may one day look back with nostalgia and share with your own students what your process was like to encourage them. That's something else. Ask your committee, what was it like when you were writing your dissertation? Ask them about the multiple drafts they went through, okay? And you'll learn a lot. And be the biggest advocate for your own work, right? Make sure that you set that schedule and talk with your committee about everything. Let's see. All right, we have like 90 seconds here. I literally went the entire time. I can't believe it. I'm sorry about that. I didn't think it would take that long. I'm going to look here and see if I can find the meeting again, and I can add. There's lots of chat, it looks like, and I see some thank yous here. And Denise has done a bang up job answering questions. She's got our email address in there a couple times. And she does say that the slides will be available next week on our website in what we call the Writing Collaborative. And they'll all be there. But if you have questions about anything I've said, you can send me an email. I'm going to put it right here in the chat box, my email address. I am happy to answer anything. This is so much fun. I can't believe how much fun this is, talking with students. And I mean, granted, I was doing just kind of shouting, but Denise is here taking care of everything. I encourage you to stick around. The next sessions we have are Carrie Little Brown. She's going to, you know what? Carrie's double booked today. There's a dissertation intensive going on right now. And Carrie, we wanted her so much to these next couple of presentations that we have another editor covering her presentation, which is going to start in a few minutes. And she's going to be here to talk to you. That's how important we thought it was. But she will be talking about what to do after you have that finished prospectus and how to start getting some words on the page to craft a proposal. And then she'll be talking about one of the greatest, like Indiana Jones style mysteries, and that's the template. Okay. I'm excited for Carrie's sessions. Like I said, she has this kind tone that I want to learn. It's just fantastic. And she knows her stuff. Jenny Martell will be giving a fourth session after that about the literature review. That's important because the reason I want you to be there is that there's all kinds of takes on literature review, and Jenny's got a good one. And you might hear something that just gets you off and running on that writing process. One of our editors, Dan Fleischacker, will be at the end of the day to kind of wrap things up, give you some words of encouragement, and really share a lot of the resources that we have. Thank you for everything. And look at that. Look how great Denise is. In the chat box, she put a link for the next session. Can you believe how awesome she is? Amazing. All right. This is a great team. I'm so glad you're all here. Good luck with your writing. You can do this. If you take one thing away, it's talk to your committee about their own process, and you'll learn a lot. All right. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the students who are here, and we will talk again. I'm going to stop sharing, and Denise, whenever you're ready, you can put a halt to this meeting. Thank you.